We have also 3 more people coming from down from there. They just finished up with the TV crew there to highlight them. First, I wanted to introduce you to Paul Colby. He's with Shepard Mullin and was gracious enough to offer us that space to do this little second Austrian Innovation Day today. And I wanted to hand over. First, fantastic. Look at the food over there. Yeah. I had asked him for coffee and tea. That's what Shepard Mullin understands with coffee and tea. Lawyers.
Well, so, and thank you, Mario. And as someone just pointed out to me, we really took it seriously when we heard the Austrians were coming to town. We got beer, we got wine, white wine, red wine, but we didn't get any water. We didn't think you guys needed any of that. And I also heard Mario tell a couple of you that you're not allowed to leave until it's all gone. So, the door's going to be locked once I leave, and please have a good party and enjoy yourself. And really this came about because Mario was saying that he's involved in this organization, and he and I were chatting about other issues, and I said, well, we're right downtown at Palo Alto. We represent, as a law firm, companies from literally one-man person in their bedroom in the garage right through to Fortune 100 companies. We really get what startups are about here. We understand that sometimes you might need somewhere nice to meet with a VC or an investor, and we often provide our conference rooms to people who are trying to start up and who want to put the suit and the tie on, and well, maybe not in Palo Alto, right? But sort of and dress things up a little bit. And I said to Mario, hey, we've got space. If you're ever doing an event and you need our help, just let me know. And so I think that was Thursday, and the following Monday I received an email. Wow, I've got this event that's coming up. So that's sort of how this came together. Let me tell you just very briefly about the firm, and then I'll get out your way. Shepard Mullin is the second largest firm in California. We've got 630 attorneys. We literally anything to do with law, we've got it covered. Here in the Valley, we're very focused on intellectual property, trademarks, patents, so vitally important to get those on file early. We also have corporate law presence, so setting up your C Corp, dealing with tax issues, whether it's domestic or international. My personal expertise is employment law. Often people don't think of those employment contracts when you get started, but I tell you what, when someone comes knocking on your door with 300 million, you wish you put that employment contract in place a couple of years earlier, maybe 6 months, depending on whether you're Uber or whoever else you might be. We also, do trade secret work, protecting your employees, protecting your IP, as well as litigation of all sizes. Now, we have offices, well, not just in California, we're across the US. We were the first firm to open in Seoul. Samsung's a big client of ours. We also have offices in Beijing, Shanghai, the UK. Essentially, if you've got any legal need, especially appreciating who's in the room, if you're coming across and investing in the US, we really have the lawyers who can assist you with that. And something again that we really get is that as a startup, we understand you don't need to pay and perhaps can't pay big firm rates. We're really in it for the long haul. We want to help startups get off the ground. Our philosophy is, sort of if you succeed, then we're hopefully going to succeed along with you. And we haven't got a 6-month plan here to make money. We've got a 10 to 20-year roadmap. And so to the extent that anybody needs our services, please do give us a shout out. I'll probably be in and out for the rest of the afternoon. So nice to meet some of you, and hopefully get to meet the rest of you throughout this afternoon. Thanks, Mario.
The reason why I came together with Paul reached out because he figured out that I'm on gamification. I have today a speaker also, Yukai, who will be talking about gamification and what it is. And he's covering that, Paul is covering that actually from the employment side because it becomes more and more interesting. So, and he was unfortunate enough to mention that he had a room and space here that we could offer. And don't tell it in Austrian twice. Now, we have today 5 speakers. 2 of them are already here. 3 we're reading. Some are coming from San Francisco down here, so I hope some from Palo Alto or SAP Labs over there. But we are starting today with John Furey. John, I had the pleasure to meet him a few weeks ago because we had, Halt Business School. We had a meeting for mentors. I think we had interns at our companies that we mentored and had for a few weeks doing some stuff with us, learning and teaching them and working with them together. And then we had this luscious dinner somewhere in San Francisco, and I enjoyed really talking to John, and I thought, you know what, with this kind of stuff, where a lot is about motivation and neuroscience and behaviors, listening about mind and all the things, how the mind works and ticks and sees time, I just asked him shamelessly to come down here and speak to us. And that's John.
All right, great, thank you. So I'd be very interested to know, very, very briefly, what you all do. Because I'm going to talk about the human mind, and I would like to talk about it in a way that actually connects with you. Overall, I'm going to talk about innovation, because I think we're all involved with it, whether we know it or not. But just like if you could got 4 or 5 words to locate, I do this in this industry, if we could start right here.
Well, my name is Matteo Fowler. I am a tech blogger, but I also work in with youth. I have a teen tech incubator, which is devoted to helping other underprivileged youth learn how to code and how to edit video and build and engineer, so they'll have skills for a better future.
Okay, brilliant, absolutely. Well done, thank you.
My name is Michael. I've been a CEO in Silicon Valley for several companies, and I'm now a mentor for European startups that come over.
Thank you.
Marcel, I'm an investor in Europe and a business developer in the US.
Lovely, thank you.
My name is Clemens Andre. I'm a recent graduate from Alt International Business School. And yeah, I have a background in finance. I worked for KPMG for the last 3 years.
Great.
I'm from Austria.
From Austria, I guess.
Same applies to me. So I'm Roland. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm also actually just enrolled for the Alt International Business School, doing an MBA. And currently I'm working with KPMG for 5 years already in the mergers and acquisitions department.
Great.
I'm Steve. I'm from Austria as well. I have my bachelor and MBA in computer science in Austria, and I'm here with my startup. It's called Questful, and we're an event management platform. So if you're hosting an event, please come by.
All right, terrific, great.
Hi, I'm Philip Spencer. We're building a health at work platform, which is rewards, gaming, predictive analytics, contextual behavior, higher level of engagement, motivation, incentives, rewards, money back in your pocket, Fitbit for your phone. We're recruiting in Vienna and Linz, so we're opening offices and operating in Austria. I'm a California expat married to an Austrian.
Okay, sounds like a lifestyle company coming up.
All the above.
Just introduce a couple, your name and a couple of...
Everest at work. Oh. Everest at work, but we haven't started yet.
Okay.
Yeah, Manuel Zil. I'm an intern at SAP for the strategic customer engagement team. Yeah, we're design thinking and HANA experts there.
All right. So, great. You probably enjoy what we're saying. Yes.
Yeah, same for me. My name is Peter Wade. I'm also working in the strategic customer engagement team at the SAP, and also expert in design thinking and innovation.
Terrific. Thank you.
Hi, it's me. I'm David. I'm currently working as a consultant for purchasing processes. I'm from Austria as well, doing studies in Mannheim in Germany, and I'm currently working as well on a startup, on a concept. We just built the first prototypes, which we are using gamification, so I got in contact with Mario.
Terrific, great.
I'm Lisa, I'm a reporter. I cover tech, business and media. I'm originally from Austria, but I live in San Francisco. My name is Stephanie. I'm also about to start my MBA with HALT. My background is I've been working with Nokia in marketing.
My name is Stefan. I'm working for the Federal Procurement Agency in Austria. I'm responsible there for innovation procurement. And I'm also an MBA student, and that's why I'm here. It's my last trip, or my first trip maybe, to learn about more about innovation here and in Boston.
Terrific, great. Well, thank you all very much indeed. That's really helpful for me because it's easy to start talking about the human mind and innovation and these sorts of things, and for there literally to be no connection for each of you. So now this gives me a little bit of an ability to locate it into the frame of reference and context that you exist in, which is one of the things that we learn about the human mind. It's like hook and loop, you know, Velcro? You got hooks in here, and all the media out there is loops. Some of it sticks, some of it doesn't. It's better when they're color-coded or information-coded or context-coded. So on your seats, you'll find that there is a little card and pencils, and if there isn't one, just shout. I'd like you to grab those for a second. I have a question for you. It's a little thought experiment to start this off. And I will tell you a little bit more about myself in a minute, but before I do, I want just to do this little thought experiment. So here you see a list of 9 words. What I'd like you to do on the card is to rearrange those 9 words into 3 lists. Obviously, each one is going to have 3 words in it. The only rule for the arrangement is that each of those lists, the 3 of them, must be internally resonant. In other words, the words must actually sound as though for some reason they belong together. So we're not trying to make a sentence, we're just trying to go like, yeah, these feel like they belong together, these feel like they belong together, and these do. All right, just take a minute and do that. This will be fascinating for you, I promise you. So if you just came in, the trick is to take these 9 words and make them into 3 lists on the little cards I've left on your seats. 3 lists.
3 lists for 9 words.
3, yeah, so you've got 9 words, so there'll be 3 words, 3 words, and 3 words. And so you can only use any one of these words once, obviously, in the list, so there's 3. And the point being is that each of those little lists that you create of 3 words has chosen, you put these words into those 3 lists, and they're self-resonant. In other words, for some reason, you may or may not know why, the words actually hang together. They sound like they belong for some reason. And there are no right and wrong answers. I'm not going to try and embarrass anyone. No one has to actually tell. But I will actually tell you that over the last 20 years, you have a 99.9% success rate with children of 8 years old, and a 99.9% success rate with children of 30 youngsters. And with 22-year-olds, and 35, and 45, and 55, and 65. So in other words, if you get them wrong, you're in the 0.01%. Which afterwards see me, I have some special treatments. All right, we won't take too long about this because I don't have long to speak. I think probably good for you. Most of you, 99.98%, would have probably come up with these 3. And if you didn't get them exactly right, there's probably only one word that you perhaps moved into a different list. So just a little show of hands, who got it at over 80% right? We won't do the 99. Over 80% right. Everybody here. Do we dare say 90%? Who did 90? Okay, all right, we're getting closer. So my question to you is, how did you do that? How did you actually know that those words
I think
belong?
words have feelings, so you kind of go for the feelings. Like,
so what are the feelings in words? Where do they come from?
well, there's words that say things, and there's words that kind of express things. I think expression is different than just talking.
Right. But there's something else at work, really, isn't there? I mean, those are both very true statements. But there's something that, why is it across languages, across cultures, across age groups, people around the world seem to be able, for the most part, to do this and to actually put those original 9 words into these 3 lists and to always do it the same way? Well, this question is quite fascinating when we start to think about the human mind and specifically innovation. So I have another little question for you. This one is no right or wrong answer, just call it out. But if you were to think of the culture in Austria, and most of you here are Austrian, and those who you aren't, project, imagine, which of the 3 A, B, or C lists would you select as the one that would most aptly describe, using verbs, the Austrian culture? Would it be A or B or C?
A.
call it out. A, B, or C?
A.
C? Yeah.
A.
Who likes C? Just put your hand up, because this is no trick question. Who likes B? Okay, we got one B. Who likes A? All right, so we got an A-C split. Okay, and a happy dreamer going for B over here. We have an AC split. Does someone want to make just a note of that? I didn't bring
There's
it
something
to the
missing.
paper.
Complaint.
Complaint isn't there. We left it off for this talk.
Is it there? Is it there?
All right, how about nouns? So we had, someone remember we had A and C in this first one.
I'll record it down.
You did that for me?
Yes.
Lovely. Okay, so in nouns, which of these, A, B, or C, describes the Austrian culture? Who goes for A?
The word's missing.
There are definitely words missing. Who goes for A? Does anyone go for A? Does anyone go for B? Does anyone go for C?
I like C.
Well, it's got to be some of them.
I like C. They dig tunnels. They dig lots of tunnels.
They do, but I wouldn't quite. Okay, so A, show of hands, please. Okay, B, C, 1, 2. Okay, so it's an A-B split. And lastly, adjectives, A, B, or C. A, anybody? Read through them a little bit perhaps first. Right, how many votes do we have for A? 1. Ever hopeful. B. Conscientious. Yeah. C. Interesting. So we have B and C. All right, great. Now, just because we're talking about innovation and we're sitting here in California and this meeting's taking place here, California is renowned for innovation. And in fact, I've done some work in tracing it back to the gold rush. We all think of innovation as being something about technology. Actually, innovation is a human spirit. It's the way we organize around something. And the gold rush was perhaps the founding of innovation here in California. So if you were to think of the California culture, the culture right here in Palo Alto, would you say it was described by A, B, or C this time? Who votes for A? No. Who votes for B? Okay. And who votes for C? No. Okay, everyone went for B. And when we use nouns, right, you've seen the list before, you have a general sense of feel for these, who would vote for California innovation culture being A? No. How about B? Still nobody. How about C? Just about everybody. Okay, we have C again. And when we looked at adjectives, I know this is getting all kind of predictable, which is the point. A? Yeah. B? Not really. C? No. Okay. So we have A on the last one. So here's the key. So when you were describing the Austrian culture, we had for the verbs
AC?
A and C. So we had certainty and probability as the two classes of words. And I'll explain what that means in a second, but certainty and probability. How about for nouns?
That actually got wiped out, so
It was an A, it was an AB.
AB, right.
So we have certainty and probability again as the two classes in nouns. And in adjectives?
Adjectives, it's BC.
B and C. Again, certainty and probability. Now think about this. The Austrian culture, and by the way, exactly the same thing was done with a group in, what was it, Munich the other day. Exactly the same result for the German culture. All right? Not surprising. However, the culture for California was described as
B.
Verbs, B, nouns,
C.
C, adjectives.
A.
Now what the hell's going on here? Seriously, if you think about this, what is the difference? Well, I'll tell you something. The chap who grew up not far away from where I spent a lot of my life, in Switzerland, Albert Einstein, actually made a very good point. Now this is not a quote that most people have actually heard. They usually know the one, you cannot solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created it. But this one here I think is far more powerful because it's talking about something different. We've created, the world we've created is a process, it's an outcome of our thinking. In order to change it, we actually have to change our thinking. And that is what my company and I have been about for the last 20 years. We map human thinking. And those lists of words, A, B, and C, are actually the three most fundamental patterns of human thought that there are. These are the thought patterns that we use in order to engage and create the reality we perceive, literally. So when we look at Austria and we see these words that are categorized as certainty and probability, we see words or patterns of thought at work within the culture, within the individuals, within the institutions, and everywhere else that guarantee certainty and high levels of probability or predictability as being an essential part of the Austrian culture, and as I mentioned, the German culture as well. But what we know is true of California and innovation, and not just innovation here in California, but up in Seattle and other places around the world. What we know is true of cultures of innovation is that these words from future thinking or possibility thinking are actually the words that best describe it. So again, what's really going on here? Well, these three ways of perceiving the world lay down our thoughts. They form the neural networks that we use to make decisions. They color our perceptions, and they actually drive our behaviors. They actually drive our behaviors. And so what happens is that each of us as individuals, we share the use of these three. We all use all three of them to some degree. But each of us individually will actually resonate with certain patterns more than others. And we call this perceptual resonance. And so these are just some words. We've mapped thousands of words. And we've mapped hundreds of thousands of people around the world in different cultures, different seniorities, different jobs, all kinds of different things, to try to get at what is really going on. What are the thought patterns that are creating the outcomes that we're experiencing in the world? And the reason why this is so incredibly important is this. It's not just because we can make new products or get to market first. It's because as you look around you, everything, and I mean everything that you will see, is a product of human thinking first and foremost. The good and the bad. The successful and the failure. Everything we do begins with a thought. And if we do not even begin to engage in a conversation about the processes of thought that are at work in our startups, in our companies, in our governments, in our families, in our communities, in our educational environments, in the world of healthcare itself, in fact, and how you engage people, which I'll be getting to in a second. If we don't ask ourselves the question of what is going on in here first, it is very, very unlikely that we are going to design solutions, create products, create new processes, govern people, give options, create healthcare programs that will actually succeed. I'm going to tell you in a minute why most startups fail. When you know it, when you see it, it will not surprise you in the least bit. And yet I will guarantee you that anyone who invests in startups would really love to know why startups fail with such frequency. And I believe that most of those people actually think they have the answer because they can point to something that correlates. Well, over 20 years of doing this, I will guarantee you that the only thing that correlates consistently is the human beings in the startup and their thought processes. That is what drives or creates success or failure. This is a map of the world of thinking. I can pretty much stand here now today in front of you because we do publish in peer-reviewed journals. We write a lot of science. We do an enormous amount of research. We are primarily a social sciences company. That's what we grew out of. We now today build technology to embed all of these ideas, all of these processes into technology, into systems, into organizations. But this is a map of the world of thinking. And this map of the world of thinking is simply suggesting to us that every single word that we utter actually does derive, is an out product of these three basic constructs at work. The entire language that we use is being driven by, is created by this temporal structure. And the temporal structure, by the way, temporality comes from the Latin word tempus, which means time. The temporal structure is our ability to imagine and think within a framework, within a spatiality of time. That's what it is. So what we're basically doing, and you can go online and take the profile for free. It's been online for free since 1994. But you can go online and take the profile for free, and you can map yourself in this world of thinking, and you will actually start to understand who you are and why it is you perceive the world the way you do, and how it is that you have the experience of the relationships that you have in your life. It's that straightforward. You can go to mindtimemaps.com. I'll give it to you later. What's really interesting, and I'm just going to be a few sort of sound bites here for you, because this is a big world where we're dealing with human mind and human thought, but a few sound bites and things that we know. When we look at this framework, we know from what's called construal level theory, work done by colleagues of ours in Israel and Germany, as well as in Canada, University of Toronto, that in construal level theory, we know that the more present thinking you have, which by the way, just to clear this up, we are all moving into the future. Past thinking is not going backwards somehow. We're all moving into the future. We are all trying to be happier. We're all trying to survive. The question is, where do we get the information? What sort of thought processes or patterns do we use in order to do that? And the further you come from that present thinking, that probability-driven thinking, the more abstract your thinking becomes. The more abstract it becomes. And the more you actually move the thought process, and or you move the people, or you hire people more towards that, the more concrete it becomes. The more deliverable, the more manifest, the more real. You go like, okay, that sounds all very good for an academic. What's that got to do with me trying to do a startup or run a business or design a product? Well, something like this. If you're trying to start a startup and you want actual funding, you'd better understand that most of the funding is coming from people who sit over here on the map who want to talk all about manifestation process and making your business from this great idea, very abstract, into something very real that makes money on a daily basis. Of course, where do you think most entrepreneurs and startup CEOs exist in our lab? Any ideas? Yeah, down here where we were identifying innovation. Interesting, isn't it? So we all think of this as innovation, and it's very, very abstract. And yet the thing we're trying to do with this concept of innovation is to actually change the very processes that are the companies that we run. So if you're trying to actually get your startup funded, the chances are much better if you start to behave at least, make noises like, which is why the word plan, by the way, resonates with a lot of VCs and angels. You may not follow your plan, but did you actually have one? Because even if you have one and you don't follow it, it's more likely that you're at least going in a direction that's going to create a process than if you had no plan whatsoever. Because we can guarantee what's going to happen. VCs and angels have seen it for years. You spin around this world of ideas and abstraction, which is great fun as long as you're being paid, but when the funding stops, it becomes really miserable. This area of abstraction is about the data. And what's really interesting in our modern startup world since the advent of the internet is the fact that we have data-driven entrepreneurs far more than we ever had before. It used to be about ideas. Today it's about understanding meaning in data. And so there are far more people coming forward, either building tools or building analytics platforms and things like that, that are actually very abstract in this data area, what we call past thinking or certainty thinking. These are people who are fantastic. They're much, much easier to move them towards the business process. Why? Because they've got all of the evidence. But having all of the evidence does not make a business process in of itself. They still actually get enamored with the evidence, they do lots more things with it, and they keep analyzing it, analyzing it, and analyzing it, and analyzing it, and analyzing it, and the money runs out. So in startup world, it's all about making it real. It's all about moving it up towards that present thinking, which is a repeatable way, a repeatable process of actually making revenue. That's the Holy Grail. Another interesting thing that comes out of our investigations of the human mind is this idea of what we call negative activation or positive activation. Probably no one's ever heard of that in this room, so let me tell you what it's about. Over on this side, it's I am not in until all of the evidence is collected and I'm sure it's the right thing to do. All right? This side, it's I'm in until I get disappointed, then I get out. Over here, it's the glass is half empty. Over here, it's the glass is half full. Over here, it's, can anyone else fill in blanks? You kind of get the idea. This is the side that says, I won't until absolutely sure. And this is the side that says, absolutely, what about sure? No, I didn't get that bit. This does not question, this questions. I see nodding heads, I'm not the belaborer. So why is this valuable to us? Well, this is valuable to us because the business community that's trying to get funded, in other words, the VCs who are trying to create that process orientation, are really interested in what is the problem that's solved. And how many times have I heard young entrepreneurs, including myself when I was young, saying, I'm not trying to solve a problem, I'm trying to change the world. So this big, brave new world idea, this I'm going out to save the world, is absolutely the essence. It's the essence of the entrepreneurial spirit. And it cannot be beaten, which is why, by the way, so few CEOs remain the CEOs of well-funded companies. Because they're still trying to brave a big, brave new world, and all of these VCs and the financing are saying, no, we want to solve that particular problem and keep solving that particular problem. And by the way, around that, there's a series of related problems, and we're going to start to actually solve those ones as well. What happens internally to the person who's trying to save the world is that there are great ideas, these huge things, are reduced down to something so mundane that they don't want to have anything to do with them. We're talking about the depths of the human spirit here, aren't we? We're talking about why we get out of bed in the morning. And yet the conflict between the sort of business processes people and the start it up, get it going, change the world, is there to this day. And just with these very, very simple insights that we have about the human mind, we can start to actually say, look, we can make a difference, because neither of you are right. Absolutely, it requires this passion, this vision, in order to get a startup, even when it's funded, even when it's developing a process, to actually go out there. This is the connection with the social world. And the entrepreneurs need to understand that absolutely you've got to make it real, you've got to deliver it, it's got to be what's the problem actually solved at some point in time. Bottom line here is that what we do is we solve the illusions, or we solve the delusions. What we're doing is what's going on here. We're answering the questions so that real conversations can happen. The vast majority of the time, most of us will enter into a room with other people with the intention of having a meeting. And yet not a single one of us will actually stop to consider who is in the room having the meeting and what is the process going on, and is there the right kind of thinking in the room to actually get the agenda done. I've heard entrepreneurs who sit down for planning processes, they're all future thinkers, they're all down here in the idea world, and they actually think that they're going to achieve a plan. Now, when you bring present thinkers in and they review the work product of those future thinkers, the present thinkers start to laugh. Actually, they start to cry. It's so pathetic. Because what is being produced has got nothing to do with a plan in the way that a plan would be produced by present thinkers to actually make it real. I've got a big nodding head at the back. I know you're a present thinker. You're really recognizing this, aren't you? Because it's ridiculous. And for thousands and thousands of people around me over these last 20 years, I have seen this go on time and time again, where everyone wants to jump to the content. What's the meeting about? Where are we going? What are we going to do? And I always scratch my head and say, could we just spend like 1 minute mapping who it is that's here? Therefore, we can better understand the likelihood of succeeding. And at the very least, we'll understand what's going to get in our way. Because if we don't have this basic awareness, we're going to fail 9 times out of 10, which, by the way, is why most startups fail. It's not that they don't have a good idea. It's not that they don't get the funding. It's not that they aren't solving a problem. It's not that they couldn't go out and hire present thinking people. Is they don't even stop to consider what kind of thinking is going into the mix every single day of the development of this business. Our systems are very, very simple. We have all kinds of different platforms we've built, but in essence, this is how we capture patterns of human thought. There's 9 questions, it takes about 45 seconds. It's a simple bar with a 100-point scale on it. People select it, gives an answer, it gives us 3 coordinates, plots someone in a map. We can do it for 1 person, we can do it for 1 million, we can do it for 10 million, it makes no difference to us whatsoever. What's fascinating about it is we're now moving away. We're working with Zurich University and Lausanne University on a project funded by the Swiss government, about a £1 million project, which started just late last year, where we're actually looking at patterns of human thinking in big data. It's really very, very, very exciting stuff. One of the first things that's coming out of this that we knew would, which is why we invested ourselves, is the ability to reverse engineer people's thinking style out of the big data. So in essence, we actually no longer need to capture it this old traditional way. We do it for a different reason, which is we believe that people own their own minds. And we believe there's a permission that needs to be given. So whilst we have the capabilities, the technologies, and we also now are covering the patents to make sure that this is protected, the fact of the matter is we don't actually need to ask people anything anymore. We could actually see these patterns at work in our world. What becomes really interesting is when you understand how incredibly predictive this actually is of human behavior and of the way to reach people. So when we're talking about human engagement, each of the people on this map, and by the way there's some 12,200,000 possibilities of position on this map, we reduce it down to some 8 basic archetypes or 11 archetypes depending on the segmentation. And yes, this does do fantastic audience segmentation. We've just done some work in Germany and France and Canada with VeriSign around purchases of URLs like .com and .net, etc. So audience segmentation can be very, very interestingly driven by this particular process. How you engage people, how you actually speak to them, how you message them, how you get their attention. 50 to 60% variance explained. by these patterns of thought. What I mean by variance explained is 50 to 60% of the reason someone will do it one way and another person will do it another way is because of these patterns of thought. Yes, if you put a pair of female shoes in an advertisement in front of an audience, you will get the variance explained by the female-male, split. Apart from San Francisco, where you may get a little bit of aberration, but for the most part, it's there. But when you put anything else in front of people, the question becomes, what is it that's driving the human thought process? What is it that's engaging people? And so things like gender and age and job and income and things explain, anywhere between none and maybe 4, 5%, 6%. That's considered good. That's considered good. Most personality tests, which this is not a personality test, by the way, this is mental resonance, this is perceptual resonance, but most personality tests will give you around a 7 to 9% variance explained. This is the introversion, extroversion, the Myers-Briggs, Kissy-Bates, MMPI, all of these. 40, 50, 60% patterns of thought. When we look at adoption, this is one of the great challenges of all businesses, is how do you get the product adopted in market? So when we start to think about the human mind as a part of the market, or the market is a human mind, and I don't just mean individual by individual, but I mean take an entire market segmented, you're dealing with the human mind. It's a collective mind, but it's a human mind. So when you start to ask yourself the question, well, how do we get our product into market? You would probably turn to someone like Geoffrey Moore's book, The Adoption Life Cycles, and look at this. Here's the chasm. Have you all seen this? This is pretty standard fare in marketing. It helps. You'll get to know this very well. So, we know how to do this bit. We know how to get, people excited over here. Great. Okay, what happens when you get here? Well, I don't know. So if you take this kind of map that we built, and you take this kind of process that Geoffrey Moore defined as the chasm, or the diffusion of innovation curve, as it's also known, and you stay. No. It doesn't want to do it. That is the strangest thing in the world. Okay, trust me on this. You're not going to trust me on this. Give me 1 second. That is very interesting. Never seen that before. These basic innovator, early adopter, visionary pragmatists, the late majority and the laggards, are basically the different thinking styles at work.